So we just sang this together. For God so loved the world, implied whole world, not just Israel, not just the U.S., but the whole world. He loved the world so much that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish. So we are privileged to share with you this morning just another place that God's at work, and a ministry that certainly our family has fallen in love with. We share this morning partly on Rissa's behalf, and we share partly out of our own experience as we've visited Rissa there in Thailand. When Rissa graduated from high school, she became aware of a program called the World Race. And it's a program where the participants travel on 4 continents, 3 countries in 9 months. And part of that trip is to just experience what Jesus is all about, serve him, and then share that with the people that they interact with. So while she was on that journey with the World Race, one of the places that they served was at this ministry called Agape Home. And so when Rissa came home, she decided that she wanted to go back to serve at Agape Home in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So there was a couple of things that Rissa fell in love with while she was at Agape Home. And the first of those would obviously be the people and the children that they served there at Agape Home. The second thing that she fell in love with was obviously the ministry that took place at Agape Home. So as you're looking, a couple of facts about Agape Home. They serve over 115 kids from infancy all the way up to 18. The picture there shows you kind of the campus, but they have an open air dormitory for the students. And then there is a training center that is a part of that, where it's used for various types of training for the children as well as others that come to the campus. And then they also have 6 houses that are located on the premise. Those houses are for kids who go beyond adoption and still are a part of Agape Home, and they set them up in separate families. So a family unit lives in each home, so they have parents, and this would be for the kids that are a little bit older, teenage children, before they move on to be a part of the community in Thailand. So that's a little bit about the campus that's there. The last thing that Rissa fell in love with while she was there is the leader. Her name is Avis Ryder, and she is her and her husband started Agape. She and her husband are from Canada, and they came there on mission and saw the need to serve children with AIDS. And this was during the AIDS epidemic, and that was 28 years ago, and there she is. A couple of things about Avis.
She's awesome.
So Avis is over 70 years old and has more energy than most of this room has in it. And so it was very easy to see why Rissa fell in love with her and with the ministry there. The first day that we arrived in Thailand, they had a baptism service for several of the children that live there in the home. And obviously, it was a very moving experience to see Avis just speak in to those children's lives. And I couldn't help but just read this verse to you as I tell you about Avis. So from Psalms 92, the righteous will flourish like a palm tree, and they will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age, and they will stay fresh and green, proclaiming, "The Lord is upright, and he is our rock." So that's for some of you that are on the back nine like I am. So I encourage you with that word, and Avis certainly falls into that category.
We're going to show you this video, and you can tell what song they're singing. It's in Thai, but you'll recognize it. And by the way, good night, Rissa. She's watching. So you can imagine, this was 2 years ago. This was our first experience, and it was, or last year, this was our first 2 months that we spent there. That was the first day, and it was incredible. I'm just going to show you a bit about how they care for the children at Agape Home and how they meet their needs. The children,
not a swimming pool.
The children get 3 baths a day. It is hot there, and they take such incredible care of their physical needs. It's overwhelming. They just rotate them like an assembly line. And I went upstairs often to pray over the rooms, and I would look at all their toothbrushes lined up and think about how well they care for their physical needs. It's so clean, and it's so beautiful, the facility itself. They buy them uniforms. They need 5 different uniforms to go to school, 1 for every day. You can see Rissa and the baby. That's the clothing room, and it's all organized by gender and size. And I did take a couple pictures of the shoes, school shoes, Crocs forever. And I took these photos and videos because it just gives you a sense, you can't tell from a picture, of what it takes to care for 115 children. We need laundry people. I mean laundry. So there are women hired to work in the laundry in the back there. They literally scrub to get the stains out. They do have washers and dryers, but they work really hard and really long hours. And then they have cooks. This is a typical dinner time. So they hire women to do laundry, they hire women to cook, they hire a lot of nannies, night nannies to be there during the night, day nannies to take care of their needs, and the teenagers often come and help. And here they are feeding many babies milk right after worship time. Even the guy teenagers, they're awesome. They come to play with their little brothers and sisters. I mean, look at the high chairs. Sorry, I'm going to do this again. Can I skip it? Shoot.
Let's go.
Okay. This is bedtime. Bedtime. And I had to take a video of this because I think of how we do it in America, where we spend like 45 minutes putting one child to bed. It's literally a beautiful thing to watch.
Where's your bedroom, man?
One's escaping.
Where's your bedroom, man?
And then the lights go out, they shut the door, that's it, party's over. And that is just one room of children that age. There are many other rooms of children. My most favorite part of how they care for the children's needs, those were physical needs, is their spiritual needs. And every morning at 8 o'clock, they have worship with the children. And they sit in a large room, and they sing together, and they pray together, and they teach them. And Avis preaches. I don't mean teaches, she preaches for a few minutes, and then they send them off to school, or they send them out to play. And it is powerful. Many times I would be weeping, and Avis would look over and say, "You don't even know what we're saying." And I said, "It doesn't matter. The presence of Jesus is so powerful, I can't stop crying." And now to Rod.
So a couple of things that we got involved in while we were there. We were there for 2 months, and we'll be heading back next month for another 2 months to be a part of what's going on there. So one of the things that they were working on while we were there is a new construction of dormitories. These dormitories fulfill a need for those that don't get adopted, who have gone through the whole program and at 18 are getting ready to transition into their culture. But as you can imagine, they've lived their whole lives in this setting, and so that's a pretty dramatic transition for a 16, 17, 18-year-old person. And so these dorms, I call them apartments, but they call them dorms. These dorms are set up they're very small apartments, and so those students can then live in those apartments as they transition, get out, get a job, and then still have the support of the community as they transition. And so it's going to be a very impactful, I believe, building for the ministry. So they dedicated the one side just recently. There's 12 apartments in that particular setup, and then we'll have another 12 apartments that will be completed while we're there this next go-round. So very excited about that particular phase of the ministry. And so that's just a shot of the kids in the new building there. If you have an interest, obviously, the money goes a long way there. And so if you are interested in supporting the next building that we're continuing to work on, we'd be glad to talk to you about that further. So the other thing that I kind of got, that I don't know who that guy is on the right, but another thing I got involved in while I was there was refurbishing playground equipment. It was just another way to do that without spending a whole bunch of money for new stuff. And so we sanded and painted all of the playground equipment, and then you see the fence in the background there behind the pool. One thing I'd say about the pool, you come in there and there's this beautiful, big, nice pool, and you're kind of like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Well, one thing is obviously it's hot, very hot. So having a place for the children to go is really nice. But the reason they have the pool is because when the AIDS epidemic was happening, the community did not want those kids swimming with their kids in the public setting. And so the community actually came up with some funds to help build them a nice pool so they'd stay in their own pool. And so now, because AIDS is not a thing, there are some with the HIV and being treated for that. But now it turns out they have probably the nicest pool in the area. So there you go. And then obviously, just great opportunities to hang out with the kids and be with the kids, and with the intention that somehow that seed of God's love would be planted in their hearts.
They loved Rod.
Other way around. Renee's term was that they burrow themselves into your heart, and that was our experience. This is a shot of them going back to school. So they had their summer break partly while we were there, and then at the end of the time that we were there, they went back to school. Now, these kids all go to the public school system. So can you imagine rounding those kids up in the morning and getting them ready to go to school? And as you could see, they had all of their nice uniforms on, ironed and ready to go for the next day. And then they have a bus that they carry the kids to. It's just right down the road. It's not too far away. So they load them onto that bus and head down to the local public school. And so then, the routine of them coming home every evening, all those kids rolling off the bus with their homework, and they have it very organized. They go straight to one of the nannies, and the nannies go over their homework with them and get them prepared for what they need to do that night. And then the whole routine starts over the next day.
Before we went, we asked the Lord what it was that he wanted us to do, because I didn't really know what that was going to look like. And so we did things that they needed, but actually we came out with so much more than we gave. And I know people say that when they go on mission trips, but so much more than what we gave. I did a lot of feeding of babies. I did a lot of teaching every day in the English school. I read to the preschoolers, which I loved. I dressed them. I held them. And it was incredible. Like I said, their physical needs are so well met, and their spiritual needs are so well met. But their emotional needs, they just don't have enough people to hold them and to love them and to tell them who they are. There's just not enough hands. And so we could do that for a period of time. And just someone said, are they starved for love? And I said, oh no, they're not starved for love, but they are starved for affection. And they did love to be held and carried around. The other tremendous blessing was to invest in the nannies and the staff. There are 3 or 4 men, and all of the rest are women. You can see the maintenance men in the front, but most all the staff are women. And so we would have cell group every week, and we would invest in each other's spiritual lives, and we would eat together. And I learned so much from them. And I can't tell you these women's stories because they're personal, but just meeting someone and hearing their story and knowing how God has transformed their lives, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in the world. One thing the Lord did put on our hearts is to kind of go over and be a aunt and uncle, or a grandma and a grandpa, because they don't have that. They don't not only not have parents, they don't have aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents. And so we had a lot of fun taking them places and doing things. We took the teenagers ice skating, and you saw Avis. She's 76. She was out there skating with the best of them. We took them out to eat. We took them to a local mall. We got them ice cream. We just had a lot of fun loving them. More ice cream. We bought a lot of ice cream while we were over there. And these last couple slides are just for fun. I call this, you know you're in Thailand when you see incredible tropical sights. You see monks at the bus stop. You see scorpions in your hallway. It's 90 degrees at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, look at the bottom numbers, right, Rob? You see babies drinking their bottle on a mother on a motorcycle. Let that sink in for a minute. You eat roasted beetles because Avis makes you. You sit at toddler-sized tables and chairs in the market every day. And I took this I think it was the last night we were there. This is just a snapshot of what it's like when the older kids come home from school right before dinner time.
So again, one big happy family is kind of the idea. Total open air facility, so no air conditioning. Just open air with lots of fans.
And then we came home to our own grandchildren. All right, John and Bekah.
So I just have a couple quick updates from Rissa, and then my mom's gonna get back up and finish it up. Hi, Riss. John and I got to go visit Rissa and Agape the end of January, beginning of February, and it was such an awesome adventure and special time for us. My favorite part, our very first day, the first morning we got there, we went to meet our sponsor kids. Not going to make it very far. But this is really special to me and important to me. This is Tang Kwan. She was the little worshiper you saw in the video, and she has a very special place in our hearts. We were actually able to choose with Rissa our sponsor kids. Thank you. And Tang Kwan is really close to Finn's age, so it's been really fun to watch her grow as Finn grows in age. And then little Nina. Nina is 1. She just had her first birthday in January, and she has some special needs, and we really fell in love with her and really bonded to her, John and I both. And one thing that was really kind of hard about the trip was we would go to the markets and things in the night, and Rissa would show us around, and there were a lot of people with special needs begging on the side of the road, and it was just hard to think about Nina, and I was just so grateful that her parents gave her to Agape, actually, because she is so loved there, and her mom was 13 when she gave birth to Nina, and Rissa was there. Nina cried a lot the first couple of days of her life, and Rissa held her a lot. And so it was really beautiful to be a part of Nina's story, and John and I even prayed about adopting her and seeing if that was a possibility, and it's not, unfortunately. But we love her a lot, and we're excited to be a part of her life from the States and be her American support and family here. She's gonna have a surgery coming up soon for her eyes, and So when we would hold her, she would want to be really close, right up front to us so that she could see us. So that will be an awesome opportunity for us to fundraise and be a part of her life from here. And obviously, we pray for them a lot. We have pictures of them up on our picture wall, and our kids pray for them, and we love them like they're a little extension of our family. You can go to the next one. Oh, I can. Sorry. Yes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sponsorship this morning. That's the main thing that Rissa does as her volunteer admin position, and she helps coordinate these children to have sponsors. This little boy is Rachel's sponsor boy, my older sister, and John was able to give him a pair of red Crocs, and then John was his best friend the whole week. So I think it's really special, the connection that we have to Agape. It feels very personal. Getting to meet them was wonderful, but even just we have my parents going in a month, and then we have some people from Greenmont going in June. And so to be able to send your sponsor child something personal that they know that somebody is thinking about them and loves them and is choosing to be invested in their life is a really special opportunity. And I would encourage you, if you're thinking about it, it's a really wonderful way for families to support this ministry. There's currently 40 kids that still need sponsors, and it's only $35 a month. But each kid needs about 10 sponsors for Agape to run just off sponsorship. So they are constantly looking for people who want to be invested in these little kids' lives. Our small group actually sent a lot of supplies over, which was really sweet and special. A lot of toys for the babies, some new toys that weren't old and chewed all over, and so that was really fun to be able to hand those straight to the kids from our friends in Life Group, and then also a bunch of bibs for they're constantly feeding and rotating them through like my mom was showing you. So that was really special, and that can be another way to get involved when trips or Rissa is going back and forth. She'll let us know some of the needs that they have, and it feels very personal to see something that we bought in the hands of the kids, which is really cool. And then 60% of the budget at Agape goes towards the staff salaries. So they have about 50 staff members, maintenance workers, nannies, office staff that get paid to care for these little kids and love on them. This nanny is giving a breathing treatment, some oxygen to a little baby who's sick. And then this nanny was my favorite. I don't remember her name, but she was so fun, and she was singing to them. And like my mom said, they just care for their physical needs in an amazing way. This is Nina eating. I got to help her eat lunch one day. But so that's another need too. They don't get paid very much, but if there's more sponsors for kids, the money goes to being able to care for them, and then it also impacts the staff in their life as well, because it provides them a job and income and a place where not only do they show up to work, but they get to go to worship every morning and hear about Jesus, and the nannies are being heard about Jesus as well, so it's a ministry to them too. And then before we knew it, it was time to say bye. It felt like we kind of just hopped over there for a little bit, but it was wonderful. This is one of my favorite videos. We were saying bye to all the little preschoolers. They liked seeing themselves. I had it facing, so they loved that. That's Tanquan. That's Sook. Mom and Dad were really close to him. I feel like as I was coming home, we were there just 7, 8 days after the travel time. And so it felt like a lot of processing to do when we got back. And one memory that was really special, it was at night, and we had just gone to a market, and we got a Grab, which is like an Uber, to get back to Rissa's place. And Rissa sat up front with the driver, and John and I were in the back seat, and they were just chatting away in Thai, and John and I couldn't understand anything they were saying, and I was a little jet lagged. I think I fell asleep at one point. And then we got home, and I asked Rissa what they were talking about, and she said, oh, he asked me what I did, and so I was talking to him about Agape and Jesus, and then he was telling me about some of his Buddhist beliefs, and I was just like, all of that was happening on our way home, and I didn't even know. I was like asleep in the back seat, and I feel like I've been kind of wrestling with that. Like, I don't want to be asleep in the back seat. I want to be doing ministry and seeing people and taking the opportunities to share Christ's love the way that she is over there. And I knew that God was sending her to Thailand, but to get to see him with her and bubbling out of her was just the most beautiful thing, and I'm so proud of you, Riss. And it's left John and I coming home. We were just thinking, like, what does the Lord have for our family? And we've been praying about this for a while and just really having our hands open. Is it adoption? Is it foster care? We really want him to use our family to be a light, and we have a heart for little kids to know Jesus. And so as we were processing that, I felt like the Lord was saying, Rissa and Avis are showing up every day to little kids who have been abandoned and forgotten, and they're telling them that they're chosen by Jesus and they're loved, and there's kids in our community that are also needing to know that they're loved and that they are chosen by Jesus, and our family can be a part of that. And so that's been really exciting for us, and as we've been praying about it, we feel like the Lord really wants to do that through our kids in public school, and we feel like they have a light that they can share, and that's an area that there's darkness, and so we want to go in as a family and just share his light and love. And the promise to me as their mom is that he's going to send them, but he's going to go with them, and they're not going alone. So that's really encouraging, and I just feel like the Lord has been doing a lot in my heart coming back. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Liza. She's probably downstairs, but just the way that our church is investing in little kids too and growing them up. She does an amazing job downstairs, and Lucy is memorizing scripture, and she's enrolled for kindergarten next year, and I know that all the things that she's learning here and at home with John and I is going with her. My favorite quote from Mother Teresa is, preach the gospel wherever you go and use words if you have to. And so I know that even from a young age, Lucy's going to get to be practicing that, and we're thankful to Rissa and all the ways that she's modeling that in Thailand for us. So I'm going to let my mom wrap it up, and we'll just leave this picture on the slide for you.
Thinking this when I was listening to Bekah talk. One thing that we would say to our girls every time when they walked out the door in the morning was we would look them in the eyes and we'd say, go be a blessing. And so this is just like feet on that. Just listening to her share, he put feet on those words. Can we just pray for a minute? Lord Jesus, I just ask that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O God. Thank you, Jesus. In Jesus' name. I prayed a lot about this, and I so want my words to be his, and I keep saying to him, anything that's not of you, please keep it out of my mind. I'm going to share with you some lessons that God taught me in Thailand, and when he taught them to me, I feel like I packed them up in the suitcase of my heart and I brought them back to America. And now I'm trying to apply them. So I went back to my journals. And on April 27th, 2022, I was in a nail salon in Thailand. Rod and Rissa were out running around somewhere. And I was getting a pedicure. And I sat by the large picture windows. And I was just people watching. And I was just watching the beautiful Thai people. They're a beautiful people, physically. They're kind, they're loving, they're gentle, they're friendly, and they were beautiful. And they were just walking by one. And then the cars, tons, hundreds of people as I sat there. And all of a sudden, this statistic came to my mind that Rissa had told me, that 2% of Thailand are Christian people, followers of Jesus, 2%. So that meant, as I was watching, that almost every single person I was seeing was lost. And that word just kept coming to my mind, and I got overwhelmed. And tears started coming to my eyes, and I realized God was giving me his heart at that moment and his eyes at that moment, because I wasn't thinking of that. I was getting a pedicure. I was people watching. But he was giving me his heart, and I got overwhelmed, and I said, God, how are you going to meet them? How are they going to know you? And this verse came to my mind. If you'll put that up, Corey. Immediately, that verse came to my mind. That's from Eugene Peterson's The Message version, and just that first half of the verse came to my mind. The word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. And then I started to cry again. And I thought, oh, so you came because you loved them, you wanted to live with them, and you wanted to show them the way. And then I started to cry again because I realized that's what he did with Rissa. He asked her to come and move in and live with them and love them so that they would know him. And so my encouragement and my challenge to you this morning, as I have been processing that experience for 2 years, I've been processing that experience. And I just want to give you a couple of my thoughts. This isn't long at all, but this is what he's been showing me. If we are his followers and his disciples, and he asks us to go and make disciples and follow his example, then in order to love our neighbor and show them the way, I believe we need 3 things, and I believe we need to ask 3 questions. The 3 things I think that we need are his voice, his eyes, and his heart. And here are the 3 questions that he has been asking me, and I'm going to ask you. Ask Jesus and ask yourself, what does it look like for me to move into the neighborhood? And here is where we need his voice. Ask him that question and listen and see what he says to you. And it may take a while, or you may hear it right away, or you may already know it and you just don't want to hear it. But ask him that question and listen for his voice. And so as I've been processing this, the Lord revealed to me that for Rod and I, one of the ways that he asked us to move into the neighborhood was what Bekah was talking about. And all 4 of our girls went through Stewart Draft schools in our community, in our neighborhood. And I specifically remember when God started showing that to me, and I felt like Jonah, and I was like, And I wanted to run. I wanted I was scared. I was terrified. And he knew, and he had a plan, and so I asked him to show me how we should do that. And he graciously, lovingly did. So for 23 years, we lived our lives together with those precious families. Was it hard sometimes? Oh, yes. Was it messy? Oh, yes. Was it scary? Oh, yes. Was it beautiful? Oh, yes. Was it fruit-bearing? Oh, yes. Was it life-giving? Oh, yes. And was it worth it? Oh, yes. And I almost missed it. I often said there was more ministry happening on those soccer bleachers that happened anywhere else in my life. And here's a small example of that. Just 2 days ago, I was in TJ Maxx. This is how current it is. And this mother came crying into my arms in the dressing area. And she started telling me things that I had told her 5 years ago. I did not remember telling her those things 5 years ago. But the seeds had been planted, and God had been watering, and he was still watering. When I was on those soccer bleachers, was my goal to evangelize to her? No. Was it to convince her of what I believed? No. Was it to try to change how she was living? No. But with God's help over these years, moving into the neighborhood meant to listen and to love them and to point them to Jesus constantly. So for our girls, they learned to love people in their neighborhood who thought differently, believed differently, acted differently, grew up differently. Did we make plenty of mistakes? Yes. Did they make poor choices? Yes. Were there failings and frustrations? Yes. But oh, did we see the love and transforming power of God in our lives as we figured this out, and in the lives of the people we lived with day after day. We literally watched people run into the arms of Jesus. The second question I want you to ask Jesus and ask yourself is, how do I see my neighbor? And here's where we need his eyes. And here's a practical story of how I saw someone in Thailand. In Thailand, there are spirit houses everywhere, all along the roads, in the yards, at restaurants. And leaving Rissa's driveway, there's a beautiful home and a beautiful family and a spirit house right as you turn the corner, right out of her driveway. And often I would see this beautiful woman worshiping, praying, offering things at her spirit house. And I found myself leveling in my mind. You know what I mean? Leveling. Like, oh, poor thing. Poor thing. She doesn't know Jesus. Oh. It's just so not God's heart. And if you'll put up that next verse. And in Luke 18. And this is what he has been showing me. To some who are confident of their own righteousness and look down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood up and prayed about himself. God, I thank you that I'm not like other men, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and I give 1/10 of all I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance, and he would not even look up to heaven, but he beat his breast, and he said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And that one line has been a prayer that I've started to adopt in the middle of the day, often. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. So how did I see her? If I look at her with God's eyes, what do I see? I see a beautiful child that he made, that he loves dearly, and he is seeking after her. So how do I see those people around me that look different, act different, believe different? And the third question is this: Ask Jesus and ask yourself, do I have a heart for my lost friends and my family? And here is where we need his heart. But I'm going to stop for a minute. We can't have a heart for them if we don't have them or know them. And I remember many years ago, probably 15 years ago, I can't remember if it was a Francis Chan study or a Beth Moore study. It was one of the two. But I remember reading this statement, and I've never forgotten it. They said, if you're reading this right now and you do not have any friends who do not know Jesus, put this book down and go make some. They're everywhere. They're everywhere in our community, in our families, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, in our businesses. He's not talking about making people projects or agendas. He's asking us to make them our friends, just like he did. Recently, God convicted me again and asked me how much time was I willing to spend praying for my lost friends. Seth gave us this, the beginning of our Acts study, and he asked us to write them down and to be praying every day. And the Lord convicted me. I kept it in my Bible. I kept praying. But do I pray for my lost friends and family with the same intensity and passion and consistency that I pray for people I know that have cancer, people that I know that are struggling with infertility, people that I know who are struggling in their marriages? Do I pray the same way that I pray for these people? And he convicted me of that. Do I care enough to pray? Do I share his heart? And so, Liza, you all can come up. The worship team can come up. To wrap it up, I was just going to say this. These lessons that he taught me and I packed in the suitcase of my heart and brought back with me, I hope that we can leave asking him the same questions. What does it look like for me to move into the neighborhood? Literally or figuratively? How do I see my neighbor? Do I have a heart for my lost friends and family? I need to hear his voice. I need to have his eyes. I need to have his heart in order to do this. And in a nutshell, I just need Jesus.